Wall Street Journal actually had an article about the outlook for cyber jobs not being as hot with AI and filling gaps. I've seen it firsthand from the board level down about how's our portfolio leveraging AI to make sure we're going to compete or outcompete everybody else out there. And then that trickles down into CEOs and are my people using AI enough? And then that trickles down to CISOs and security teams, and it kind of washes aside the whole risk assessment. And are we worried about AI and our security now? Do we have enough of it? Why aren't we doing it fast enough? I think
the Adversarial Podcast. Why you gotta be so adversarial? Adversarial. It's time to get adversarial.
Welcome to the Adversarial Podcast, and Happy New Year in 2026, guys. Good to see you after the break. Hopefully you all got some good downtime. It looks like your travel is suspended, both of you, for a little bit here. You're in seat.
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year to everyone as well. Yeah, I had a chance to go to Arches National Park during the winter. Going to a desert during the winter is better than going to a desert during the summer, and had a good time with the family.
That's awesome. Is it crazy cold or was it nice?
Oh, no, it was like 60 degrees.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I went there during the summer, and I can vouch for what you're saying. Like, it's awesome at 5:30 a.m., and it's amazingly awful at noon. How about you, Mario? Did you get away for the holidays, or you been around?
No, I get away. We usually go to Colorado. No skiing. We don't ski. But I do. This is my my 1 week with the in-laws where I get to catch up on my reading. So I was excited about reading, so I had
Poor
4
in-laws.
books yeah.
They're like, why does Mario just sit around reading books whenever he's with us?
It is, right? So from morning till the evening, and but I picked up on exciting books. One of them is one about quantum physics. I'm just so tired of not understanding quantum physics, and guess what? Most of the scientists don't even understand it themselves. So that's what I'm learning.
No progress.
I've actually gone through a couple. I mean, I almost majored in physics until I got to the math part that I couldn't understand. There's a little bit of a trivia. Einstein was bad at math.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fascinating if you think about what he was able to accomplish. But yeah, there's a ton of really interesting books in quantum physics that boggles the brain.
I did some reading too. We actually got out to Jackson Hole. We took the right bet there for snow, because apparently even if you did ski, Colorado wasn't that great lately.
Or Salt Lake City, which is where I was.
Yeah.
They had the warm, which is why it was so warm at Arches National Park. So
it was 72 degrees a couple of days in like the Christmas Eve. 72 degrees in Colorado. I was so blown away.
We had like 180 inches of snow total, and they were upset that it wasn't a great year, and it was wonderful, and it was awesome in Wyoming.
Wow. So
looking at the calendar coming up, we were just chatting before we got on the air here. So it's early January. RSA is coming up at the end of March. We confirmed all three of us are going to be in town. We all have our own gigs we'll be doing. Sunil is speaking at the summit. I've got a bunch of meetings lined up. Mario, I'm sure you do too. But we'll all be around, so ping us, anybody who's wanting to catch up. And we're toying with the idea of maybe doing a live podcast. So if somebody has an event or something and they were thinking about having a live podcast as part of their agenda and they'd be interested, just give us a shout. It's pretty easy to get a hold of us. I'm adversarial.com, and the guys are just too easy to find. But I'm looking forward to that, and that'll be a good time to get I know my whole crew on over there, and Mario to do some cycling in Marin. Yeah, gotcha.
What's our bet that how many companies we're going to see this year are not going to talk about AI? So just what's the percentage of companies that will not be talking AI, in other words?
I thought you were going to ask for raw numbers. Like, will there be one? Will there be three? Even that. Percentage-wise, less than 1%.
I think so, too. Sunil, what do you think?
I would have put it close to 0, yes.
Yeah, here we go. Well, speaking of AI, let's jump right into our first topic. So Wall Street Journal actually had an article about the outlook for cyber jobs not being as hot with AI, filling gaps. I think all three of us, and certainly our listener base, run into AI companies in security all the time. And part of that is because there's so much pressure, and I've seen it firsthand from the board level down about how's our portfolio leveraging AI to make sure we're going to compete or outcompete everybody else out there. And then that trickles down into CEOs and are my people using AI enough? And then that trickles down to CISOs and security teams, and it kind of washes aside the whole risk assessment. And are we worried about AI in our security? Now it's, do we have enough of it? Why aren't we doing it fast enough? I think it's not ready yet to displace jobs. I don't think people are getting enough value out of AI and cyber to drop staff today, but that it's a convenient excuse to not look negligent when cutting staff. Well, what do you guys think? I bet you have opinions.
So I have opinions, but I can also just come with data.
Okay, if you insist. Spock.
Yeah, there was it's a very more objective way to look at it. So similarly, there was a article from the Washington Post the other day about AI's ability to take on tasks, and so they came up with, I think it was like 250 or so tasks that they had AI do. And out of the 250, the best AI model or AI orchestration system was able to complete something like 5 or 6 of them. So
out of how
something
many?
like out of like 250. So let me make sure I got the right numbers. Maybe like 240 or something like that. But anyway, something less than 3% of the tasks were actually completed with the best AI orchestration task tools, if you will. Pretty pretty low, much lower than I think we would expect. Now, one can certainly look at the list of tasks and say, hey, what kind of tasks did you ask these AI systems to do? Is it reasonable? Is it the kind of stuff that you would ask normal office workers to do, or cybersecurity people to do? So that requires some additional examination. But looking at some of the tasks that were asked, like for example, take this diagram and turn it into like a formal sketch. It just did it horribly, right? So some things that you would expect a human to do somewhat effortlessly, AI systems still failed pretty miserably at.
Yeah, I have some firsthand anecdotal data. So I had to do a repetitive task. I do every semester, right? So I still teach part-time, Georgia Tech, Enterprise Cybersecurity Management, and it's about 400 students. It's split between online and in person, but I put all 400 in a Slack. And it just works out better to purge that whole same existing Slack workspace each semester and add everybody fresh and keep all the structure. To do that, it means, and anybody who's been a Slack admin is going to immediately roll their eyes when I say this, it means you have to remove 400 people. And there's no bulk remove in Slack because it's a 4-man operation. They haven't gotten around to that, or God knows what, repeated issues with Slack. So you click each one, click, remove. Are you sure? Yes. Next, 400 times over. So I decided, let me use a agentic browser. And so I used Perplexity. And this is actually wild. So I used Comet Perplexity, which I've been playing with anyway. And I basically said, do this. And it screwed up a few times. And I kept coaching it. And finally it started clicking. It was great. And I said, okay, this is awesome. It started clicking. And it was removing a user about once every 2 seconds. So then I said, wait a minute, reduce the delays by 90%, because it had said in the audit log, it had said like waiting 1 second, waiting 2 seconds. So reduce them by 90%, and it totally got it. So it changed to 100 millisecond, and then it started cruising. It was going pretty good. And then I said, you're out of credits for your free one. You have to pay to continue. I said, you know what? I'm in. I'm getting value here. So let me pony up $20. Start it out. So now I log in with my paid account, and I replay the same prompt on the same page, say, click this, that, and the other. And it says, this looks like an access control page. And you're asking me to remove access for people. This violates my security rule set. And it's too dangerous, and I won't perform it. And I tried going any which way I can, and it refused to do what the free version did. And it might have just been because of the way I walked into the prompt, But in any event, I was dead in the water. So I got a refund from Perplexity, Googled around, and I ended up with Opera Neon, which is there, relatively new, which brought me back like 25 years, the last time I used Opera. and it was a mess with just the ads and the desire to throw
Opera
crap at
still
me.
around?
Yeah, and now they have an agentic. So I fired it up. I finally got it to run. It was even slower. It was, reduce the delays by 90%. Yes, sir, right away, I'll reduce them by 90%. And then it would just do it without reducing them. And it would do maybe about 20 or 30 of these things over like 45 minutes and then time out and wait for input and all. Anyway, I bludgeoned my way through a bunch. I ended up not reducing my workforce, not using AI to eliminate jobs. I ended up doing stuff myself. And I think that's illustrative of where we're at right now. Like, it's not reliable enough to can people.
Yeah. I think from what I've noticed, but I'm also going to bring some connections to other stories as well that may not be AI related. But I think a lot of these guys in the that are tech in the AI industry, the big names, there is a lot of fluff. We're going to change the world. We're going to do it now. We're going to do it in the next 6 months, next year. Everything's going to be AI. Maybe in 5 years, maybe 7 years. It just reminds me when some folks out there are saying we're going to go to Mars in 5 years. The idea of sending human beings to Mars and then coming back, not dying along the way, is just next to impossible. The idea that we're going to go to Mars is a one-way ticket at best. And so I think with this whole AI stuff, there's a lot of fluff. However, it does get the ears of the CIOs, the CTOs, and the CEOs out there, and they are definitely putting a little brake on budgets and hiring. I do see that. And the excuse has been, show me how AI cannot do this for you. And then maybe we'll talk about hiring. That's what I'm hearing. And I've heard that a number of times.
Yeah, I agree with you. But then that's kind of closer along the spectrum to where I was saying a convenient excuse to not hire or even to let people go. But I mean, I think being a probabilistic subject matter, I think it works well in use cases where probabilistic suffices, right? You don't have to be 100% accurate. And those jobs exist, like proofing generation. If you're paying people to solicit people with just, spam emails, those people's jobs can be removed today via AI. The phone calls I get every single day about, would you like to sell the property? I don't even know what property they're talking about, the wholesale mortgage people. Those folks are out of a job thanks to AI, because if it screws up and it's crappy, it was crappy anyway. The conversion rates are so bad anyway that probabilistic works. Cybersecurity, though, I would say that most of us have had done an awful job at ROI, at proving ROI. Like, if you run a threat hunting group, you know deep down inside that they could all go away tomorrow and it might be bad, might be okay, might not matter. It's very hard to prove ROI on that kind of stuff. So with AI, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, maybe it could do a shoddy job and do just as well. And on the other hand, it's going to be pretty hard to prove, whether or not it's actually being successful or not. Are there areas in cybersecurity that you see a trajectory to AI displacing the labor in even the next 3 years? And what are they?
Well, I think part of the irony of that one is that the one thing that a lot of us want to displace very quickly is the third-party risk management surveys and whatever that we have to pour through. But the irony, of course, is that most of those are now being AI generated, and we're asking other AI systems to consume it and make sense of it. So I think especially if something is being AI generated, you'd want to have another AI system proof it and evaluate it. That would be one that I think people are generally looking at AI potentially holding promise there. But frankly, I think it actually, if anything, points to the underlying flaw of third-party risk management and the vendor surveys and questionnaires to begin with. It's all a sham to begin with, and the fact that you have AI systems producing the outputs and AI systems consuming it and checking the box out of that just points to how flawed it is.
Goodness, it reminds me of like imagine two AI bureaucrats talking to each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the only hard requirement was to prove that something is happening, then it's perfect.
Well, and to that point about threat hunting, that's the challenge where you're trying to prove a negative. And when I was at Bank of America, I had the privilege of running both the red team and the hunt team at the same time, and so it gave me the opportunity to not prove a negative, but rather to prove to have a verifiable mechanism. And I think that's one of the things that we oftentimes lack in cybersecurity, which is this ability to have verifiability. And there was a post by a friend of mine, Sergey Epp, who made a claim that verifiability is all we need in cybersecurity. And he makes a pretty good point here, which is that if you want AI systems to be the type of AI systems that are that can be trained really rapidly with high quality outcomes, all have a high degree of verifiability. You know you achieved a goal or not. Unfortunately, in cybersecurity, we have tons of false positives, which makes the verifiability extremely hard to do.
Yeah, I call that the true positive, right? Where like and classic example is mean time to detect metrics. Like most CISOs pursue that and they either pretend that they have it or say that they'd like to have it. Those are your only two choices, really. And the problem with mean time to detect is there's a number of problems with it. But for one, it by nature excludes all of the items that you completely missed, that you never detected, the infinite, right?
Mm-hmm. False negatives.
Unless you know the whole universe of samples that you're trying to detect, then it's hard to gauge the efficacy. But when you red team, it's perfect.
Right, exactly. The red team gives us that verifiability for the hunt team.
The true positives, right? Because then you know the one that you never detected. Because at the end of the day, the person raised their hand and say, hey, by the way, you missed that entirely. And I think that like with AI, trying to displace that kind of effort or again, it's hard to say when you're trying to prove a negative whether or not it's really valuable or not. And so if people were kind of on the fence and saying, I want to wind down this program anyway, now it's really convenient to drop in an AI tool. But the other problem is that the universe of like, to have a mean of anything, you have to have some statistically relevant data, statistically significant data, which means a lot of data, right? You're not going to calculate mean time to detect over one issue per year. So companies that are producing mean time to detect have thousands of incidents, and that or more. And that means what? It means 1,000 dark army advanced persistent threat. No, nobody has 1,000 of those. You have one of those. You have 1,000 phishing attempts, 1,000 port scans. And if you're measuring your mean time to detect over nonsense, the board reads that as the way how quick we're going to find the Russian threat actor in our system. And if mean time to detect was calculated based on port scans and phishing attempts, and you're like, oh yeah, we have a 5-minute mean time to detect, it's pretty much worthless. So I'm not really, and at the same time, the whole market is trying to position towards the sophisticated stuff. So like the AI-enabled SOC right now is all advertised about pulling the threads and finding the advanced threat actor in there, as if that's what we do all day. But it's not.
You're right. I think Sunil has mentioned this before. I'm going to use our friend Sunil. Please keep me honest, Sunil. If I'm misquoting you. But when he talks about vulnerability, I mean, he goes, there's just tons of vulnerabilities out there. They just haven't been discovered yet. They're just out there. And so, am I correct, Sunil? I'm not misquoting you there.
Vulnerabilities are dense, meaning they're more than we can possibly discover. And if you discover more, there's more to be discovered.
So let me make the connection. So regarding folks who are receiving alerts and ticketings in our SOC, I know we don't have formal SOC teams anymore, and that's yesterday's news. But regardless, there's always a security analyst looking at this information coming in and determining, what to take action. What does this look like? And do I need to elevate or to somebody in a level 3 security person that can make sense of this stuff? And what I've often seen is, if the documentation's poor or that L1 person is new to the company, they oftentimes they'll bump those things to level 3. So level 3 people are too busy firefighting when they shouldn't be doing that. They should be thinking about what else is out there. What projects should I be thinking about? What vulnerabilities should I be spending time on? I think this is where AI can help those level 1 folks to kind of make sense of some of the data so they can actually self-help themselves. Now, it's not pure, it's not accurate, it's not 100%. But if we can just reduce some of that thing where we passed up to a level 3 person, It'll free up level threes, and level threes will start finding new potential vulnerabilities, new issues. That's what I see potentially occurring in this space.
There's a common trend that we're seeing, which is when it comes to the usage of AI tools, it's the junior folks that actually use it more than the more senior folks.
That's right.
The senior folk, I don't know if it's just a predisposition of senior folks saying, "Hey, I don't need this tool," whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas the junior folks are like, "I really need this tool." So there's that piece of it, but there's also another general perspective of those senior folks who actually have used the tool. That use the AI tools recognize its limitations and recognize what is really good for and what is not really good for. And to Jerry, your original use case, which was to go to the Slack interface and do what you were asking it to do, a senior person would have said, "You're doing it all wrong. You should just go to the browser console and just create a little script that does it for you." And it does it much faster than through the way that you did it. But only a senior person or someone with that sort of insight would have that guidance that they would tell a junior person. A junior person would just try to brute force it and get the outcomes that you got. But a senior person would say, no, there's a more elegant way to do this.
Yeah.
And that elegant way is not usually something that these AI assistants are particularly good at highlighting.
Yeah, and I tried to coach AI into doing that too. I said, like, to just query the API directly and don't use the UI. And it blew its mind. It's like, damn it, I'm an agentic browser.
No. I was suggesting actually use the UI, but use the UI through the browser console, not through the browser interface itself.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's kind of just talking to the API, right? Because all the browsers are doing anyways. Well, and I'll tell you, like, to your point, so this particular thing I do for class prep happens before the semester starts. So it's just me. During class, especially in the first month of it, we have a lot of ebb and flow, right? People are adding late or dropping or whatever else. So we have to true up the Slack membership. And so there I have, 5 or 10 TAs, computer science geniuses at Georgia Tech. So in those cases, I say, like, hey, somebody pick up the script from last semester and modify it. And they have. And so I leverage coders to actually do that. And I think they just use some Python scripts because that's the only language that they teach in college these days. But that's kind of a joke. But anyway, yeah, it's a valid point.
Pascal, buddy.
Yeah, that would work great. And next topic on here. So one recurring theme in our circles is CISO liability, D&O insurance, and in all of the situations that have gone on in there. And we had some good news for the CISO community in SolarWinds a few months ago, or maybe it was about a month ago now, when the SEC finally dropped the suit against Tim Brown, the CISO. There's a new one out. It's Coupang, so South Korean firm. That breach apparently happened in July, and it resulted in 30 or 40 million, generally Koreans' identity and info being disclosed, and the CEO ultimately resigned there. And now there's a class action suit in the U.S., very similar in my mind to SolarWinds in that it's going against the body of law as an investor. So it's an investor suit. It's not on behalf of the public or the individuals whose data was disclosed, but it was saying that the market cap of this company has been reduced due to the negligence and insufficient fulfillment of fiduciary duties of the company. And it named the CISO. And this just got noted recently. And I know I started looking through this to understand it, and it hasn't been arbitrated in any way yet, so it might just get thrown out. So there's no reason to say anything that's in the suit is proof that we have to change behavior as people are wont to do. It may be a, haha, look, no one can get us, no one can touch us when this thing gets thrown out. But it's basically saying that the CISO and others misled the investing public when they made statements like those that every CISO makes if they're ever asked anything. Oh yeah, we put a lot of effort into security. We take security very seriously. We're into threat hunting. That's been a really good win for us. Those are the types of statements. It's pretty basic.
Wait, can you clear some for me, Jerry?
Yeah.
This is a South Korean company. Is it publicly traded in South Korea or in the U.S.? Can you clear that for me, please?
The CPNG, I believe, is a U.S. ticker symbol. I forget which exchange.
Oh, okay.
But I think the question is around to what degree are we liable for statements that we make to the investor community when the statements, or rather, given the statements that we make, could we come up with statements that don't make us liable, given that we're dealing with a situation that is largely outside of our control, and we can only state what we know, but we can't necessarily state the exposures that we're not familiar with. So I've seen this play out firsthand, of course, at Bank of America, where we have to put it into our annual report, the nature of our cybersecurity risk, and the way it's stated, you can pretty much drive a truck. You can drive a 747 through it, because it's like, hey. Security breaches and the risks from security breaches and these sort of failures continues to increase despite all that we're trying to do. We're gonna put money into it, but these risks are continuing to increase. Despite substantial efforts to do all this, we recognize that we can't cover everything. Okay, that's like a blanket statement that says, you know what, if something bad happens, hey, at least we gave you a clear statement of there's still risk here, and it's not zero. And if there's any CISO out there who says, hey, I found some silver bullet solution that some vendor promised me that will prevent all cyber attacks, well then sure, you should get sued for that, because it's
but hold on,
true.
like step aside from cyber for a minute and use a metaphor here. So let's just talk about marketing or operations or even legal. The risk factors section of like a 10K, which includes the type of cyber statements that Sunil just mentioned, also talks about things like our product may not be effective. We may have competitors come along. We work in markets with strict labor laws. There may be a labor dispute, right? The risk factors is always worst case scenario. You would never put that in like an advertisement. Everybody would run for the hills. But we're all used to now in filing, it's meant to be really the worst case scenario there. That said, let's say a DuPont or something like that. I'm sure in their 10K it says something about manufacturing facilities and the risk associated with that, and it's very dire, and all hell could break loose at any given moment. In their marketing, or especially in their careers page and their job fairs, I'm sure they say top place to work, safe place to work. Safety is number one for us. That's what we care about. And everyone's comfortable with that dichotomy, like the marketing side versus the worst case scenario. So in cyber, I think I haven't seen egregious issues in the 10K. No one in a 10K is saying we're impervious to cyber issues. So when the CISO is on at RSA and they're doing the live podcast and someone says, hey, what do you do at DuPont about cyber? And that CISO says, oh yeah, we invest heavily in cyber. We really care about it. It's tough, but we're doing a great job. We're finding stuff all the time. Shouldn't that be fine? It's just like we have a safe facility.
Sure, yeah, but let's get into the specifics. So in the Coupang example, the statement was that Coupang basically has these measures in place to ensure that users' personal information is not stolen. Okay, so Coupang has these safeguards and measures in place to ensure that this information is not stolen. That's a pretty strong statement, right? I mean, if I were them, I would be hedging. I would hedge all that, right? I would be like, to mitigate the possibility that, or to lower the probability or something like that, right?
Could have been worded better.
Yeah, so I think this is just you didn't have enough lawyers that were paranoid enough to edit this wording.
When they prevail, then it might support my argument that maybe that's okay.
I think to your point about it prevailing, I think there should be a general sense or understanding across the community, just generally speaking, that there is no zero prevent. You can't 100% prevent anything here. And so, yes, even though I may have said ensure by mistake, what I really meant was, we have a degree of assurance, but it's not 100% assurance.
we're here. I'm gonna just say, forget it. Even fighting this thing is it's never gonna get us anywhere. Here's the headlines: Americans love their lawsuits. Okay, so there's always gonna be some lawyers looking to find a way to make some money to sue somebody. Okay, so as I think we all, we know Joe Solomon. I think a lot of us, he's a friend for most of us here, for all of us, and the thing he said when I heard him talk about some of these situation that he went through is you really have to get a full indemnification from your company if you're going to take a position as a CISO. Because this is just going to happen over and over and over. And there's just so many permutations that are going to happen. So you as a professional in this space, you just don't know worrying about what you're going to say. And I'm not saying go and freaking fabricate crap, right? But there's just so many angles that people can take advantage of you and what you're saying, and you just can't protect yourself unless the company's going to do some full indemnification. That's just the truth. And all you have to do, if you have a 401k, you're investing, whatever, every other week you get a little flyer, a little postcard. Hey, we're going to sue this company that you've invested in. We should, why don't you join us? So you'll make $50 and we'll make millions. There you go.
And that's what this is. It's a class action. Yeah. I mean, we'll keep an eye on it. I don't think I think it's even looser than the SolarWinds one when you look at the things that were claimed. Totally. All right. Jaguar Land Rover, hopefully this is behind us from a cyber perspective, but they've gone through earnings end of year, and stock price aside, which is down, but they've been down before. It says their wholesale volumes are down 43%. UK government gave them a loan to accelerate payments during the crisis, but massive impact here. And some UK figures even show an impact to GDP based on Jaguar Land Rover having a material contribution to that. Cyber's here, and it actually has a material impact here. And man, do you think this is going to change anything? Whether it's the amount of prominence that cyber takes, or the amount of people are willing to invest in it, or regulation around critical infrastructure or anything like that?
Well, if the answer is, if the result of that is that it translates into cyber jobs, going back to the earlier conversation about the diminishing number of cyber jobs, I'm not sure if this will lead to any substantial refocusing on cybersecurity more than we see today. I would also ask the question, how much of the wholesale volumes are down because their vehicles are not so good, just in general, relative to other vehicles that are out there.
There's a money ball. There's a money ball, Sunil, right there.
I would say if Waymo, or if Jaguar found a way to make the Waymo hardware default for all new Jaguars that they have, then they probably see much greater sales.
I love Porsche, so I'll just call it out. I'm a Porsche geek, but they announced they had a $966 million, almost $1 billion last year, and that's a big deal for Porsche, and that's because they've gone heavy on EV, and the market is kind of not liking EV for the moment. There's a hiccup, so. They didn't have the excuse of a cyber attack. I think Sunil's onto more. Is onto something here. I think Jaguar's blaming this on the cyber attack when there's probably more stuff underneath there. And Sunil, please correct me if I'm misrepresenting what you just said.
I can't. I don't know how much of that 43% is from their cars not being as good as not being competitive in the market versus the actual cyber attack. No doubt that it was a contribution, but generally speaking, there are. If you just consider the market of buyers for Jaguar Land Rover, you're already appealing to a certain class of hierarchy class, if you will. And among that, you typically are looking for people who actually are happy to buy EVs, but they may buy, a Rivian instead of a Land Rover, right? Because Rivians are cool.
Do we know, Jerry, if the people got that the security team was replaced? Let me just say fired. No. All right. Do we know that?
No. That'll be interesting to look into. I mean, I doubt it's that black and white, but still the gray areas that we uncover from that might be interesting Did they add security? Did they name someone? Did they not have a formal team before and now they do, or whatever? So
wait a minute.
that's
So you got
very
a CEO of this place and 46% of your sales is down because of a cybersecurity space. And then you don't do something about the team, or, as a CEO, make some
TBD.
major changes.
Let's
You know
see.
what I mean? Right? Yeah.
I think
I
it's
see a
worth a string
lawsuit
of
in the
approval.
making already.
Yeah. All right. Other stuff going on. There's an article that came out about security chiefs plan new uses for AI in 2026, and this kind of harkens to the job replacement thing or not, but just focusing on where it could be beneficial. We talked a little bit ago about like the SOC, the security operations impact, and my argument there is that was very uncertain already anyway. And I also feel like marketing wise, trying to sell everybody on needing faster, more an agentic response to finding the elite, ultra sophisticated adversaries is kind of misguided. I think 99% of the work for SOCs is for the more boring, mundane cases, and in that case, I'm not sure that those tools are really targeting that yet. But when I read through this article, someone mentioned reducing the amount of time it takes to find vulnerable systems by a couple orders of magnitude. I'm a fan of using AI for triaging risk findings and going from 1,000 findings from Nessus to 6 important ones that you actually need to fix, because it adds in context about exploitability and all of that. And that goes back again to where I feel like that's a very probabilistic science, even in the hands of humans. It's very inconsistent depending on who's on the clock that day and who triages these alerts that come in from Watchtower or whatever it is, whether or not they take them seriously. I feel like AI has a good play there when there's already a lot falling through the cracks. It's already inconsistent. And as somebody once told me, I'd rather have your AI holding its finger in the air rather than 3 of us in a room holding our finger in the air. At least it's plausible. It shifts the responsibility to the AI for the guesswork, if you will. Where do you see it growing?
Okay, so there are a couple of things here that are worth noting. That we can see AI in 2 different ways. One is as a incremental improvement to a lot of what we already do. So I have a SIM. Can I make this AI enabled? Can I take the SIM and make it more AI enabled, whatever that means? Okay. And that applies whether it's a SIM or vulnerability management or even vulnerability discovery. Okay. But I think what we should also be paying attention to, in fact, maybe paying attention more to, is the changing operating models with respect to how these AI systems and agents are being leveraged inside of our environment. The first case, where it's just an incremental improvement, is very similar to how I would look at how people looked at cloud. People will look at cloud and say, it's just somebody else's computer, and you take a lift and shift approach, and that was really not a good way to leverage cloud. In fact, it created more issues. What the people who did it right said, no, cloud is a whole different operating model, and how we engage the teams, the processes, they all need to be reevaluated and rebuilt, reconstructed around this new operating model. And so that's the other way to really look at the leveraging AI. A true leveraging of AI in what I think is more than just this incremental approach, is to say, what are some fundamental assumptions that we have around how we do business, how we work, that need to change because we now have AI agents in the mix, and those AI agents demand a whole new operating model.
Yeah. I'm going to slap myself. I cannot believe I'm going to say this. Honestly, a year ago, I would have probably just spat on myself. I think the proliferation of AI tools in the organization, that proliferation itself starts introducing new risks, potential new security issues that are introduced by those tools that we're using. And I don't know if our existing vulnerability scanning tools, whatever security tools we use today, are able to determine how much security weaknesses these AI tools are introducing to the ecosystem. In a way, it's kind of like Sunil's saying when you started looking at the cloud, you had Tenable. For years, we used Tenable. We were on-prem. You have agents, blah, blah, blah. You scan your servers, your nodes. But now you have the Wizes and the Orcas of the world doing really well, or did well. Why? Because they are focusing in the cloud, and it was a different way of dealing with the cloud. It was a different, you couldn't just put lipstick on a pig, and I'm not calling Tenable a pig, but you get my idea here. So I think there's an opportunity to look for security tools that are going to be monitoring and identifying the security issues introduced by an organization's proliferation of AI tools.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think we're starting to see that already. And it's changing the calculus on how we test and what we test. Like just good old prompt injection, like just top to bottom with so many tools that are now evaluating untrusted input, aka reading an email. Then prompt injection becomes maybe it's yesterday's SQL injection where everything is going to be vulnerable to it by default, and until you get burned, you won't stop touching the stove. So whether or not we find, no less, fix our AI processing logic for prompt injection with AI is kind of irrelevant to that. Like you could fix non-AI problems with AI and vice versa. I do think it may be possible for using AI-based evaluation engines to up the pace and the permutations of prompt injection to be able to find susceptibility.
So let me offer one additional perspective for consideration. So Joshua Sachs, he's over at Meta. He runs, I think, their AI red team. I'm not sure. I forget. Something like that. Anyway, he put forth this interesting assertion or paradox that he says, we have all these folks using AI agents or using AI systems, and it's vastly increasing our attack surface. But his perspective, from his vantage point, he's saying that the attackers haven't shown up yet. And I would generally agree. The attackers haven't shown up. But let me go back to the cloud model again for a moment. In the cloud model, when we first had cloud show up, the type of attacks that we saw were, you just lifted and shifted your vulnerable application from a perimeter that was already porous to one where it's already fully accessible to the internet. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, that is not a cloud attack. That's just like you just built your application stupid and don't have any standard perimeter controls around it type of an attack. It wasn't a cloud attack. It took several years before we started seeing cloud-specific types of attacks, and usually that dealt with misconfigurations and whatnot. And,
yeah,
and so enter CSPM and all the things associated with that. I think we're similarly in that same state with the AI ecosystem. My first argument is that the attack surface is much, 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 much larger than anybody can possibly imagine. The attack surface is already massive. AI is actually contributing to that. But it's not as the base rate, so to speak, of the attack surface is significantly than our minds can possibly grasp. It's like one of the most powerful laws and powerful forces in the universe is compound interest. We don't understand exponential growth, and our attack surfaces are growing exponentially. But the problem is also that attackers don't necessarily have time to explore all these attack surfaces. They are optimizing for their outcomes as well. And the most optimal approach for their outcomes is attack what they already know, that is already that they know to be undefended, and there's already a common path that they understand for that. Once they figure out what that, once someone clever comes up with a way to exploit something consistently, then they may pivot into that space. And so that's I think there's a lot of interest around securing these AI systems. Right now, we don't see much attacker behavior in these systems just simply because they haven't, they find much better ways to make money and to achieve their outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's coming, and I think that the time from proof of concept to mass exploitation is shortening, and will continue to shorten. And so I think when it comes to things like prompt injection, it'll go from Oh, wow. A lot of sites that all use the same, middleware are susceptible to this, to mass exploitation. I think that will happen a lot more quickly than even something like, you know, struts or something like that in the past. All right. Next topic. We know some folks and have over the years in CISA and U.S. government writ large when it comes to cyber, and the latest headlines around that are about CISA director failing a polygraph, and
The acting
that
CISA director.
acting CISA director failing a polygraph. And then the way the story read out is that he was kind of framed or set up by some of his undermining staff who maybe weren't happy with him by saying he needed to take a polygraph when maybe he really didn't for the specific thing he was trying to get access to. But net, he then failed one. What's in these polygraphs? Are they related to the request? Are they just a general gauge of character? How interesting is this?
Okay,
question.
so let me see if I can give some more background behind this. Again, it's an acting CISA director. The Sean Planky hasn't been confirmed yet, so this guy is basically keeping the seat warm, so to speak. He asked to see a highly classified program for which you needed to get to have at least a counterintelligence poly. You need to be able to pass a counterintelligence poly. There's two types of polys. There's counterintelligence, and above that is what's called lifestyle or full scope. But the counterintelligence is a subset of that, so it's easier to pass a counterintelligence poly. It's full scope is I guess more challenging of sorts.
They don't go talk to your family members then at that point?
Oh, they do that. They do that already.
Oh, they do that.
But it's nothing to do with the poly. We're just talking about
It
the
has
poly.
nothing to do with the poly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Okay, but anyway, the point is that this particular program needed you to be cleared at that level because let's just the phrasing should be clear. It was a counterintelligence poly. Counterintelligence being, are you potentially working for an adversary that you might be a spy? You don't want you to divulge state secrets to national security secrets to other entities, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so the acting CISA director failed the counterintelligence poly. Now, a lot of people fail the polygraph for many different reasons. But it's at least, okay, well, it's something to note, right? No accusations outside of just saying it's something to note that this guy failed his counterintelligence poly. But what was also clear was he kept insisting, no, I need to see this program, despite many of the career people saying, you actually don't. You just need to know, like, for example, the outputs of it, but you don't necessarily need to know the intricate details, which may include, for example, where we might actually have presence. Okay. So those kind of things are not, that gets into like sources and methods. And this guy was apparently wanting to see like that level of detail, which is like, you don't really need to see that level of detail to do your job. So anyway, he insisted. The staff said, well, then you need to get your counterintelligence poly. So he obliged, failed it, and now he's like upset that he failed it, and that's part of the story here. Okay, but all that aside, I think what's perhaps the question that we should be asking ourselves is, we keep running into these kind of scenarios where it's sort of like who watches the watchers. It's a classic security question that we have, which is, how do we ensure that the people that are working for security are trusted individuals? And if we take a zero trust mindset even to the people, what does that look like? Because we have a situation where we may potentially have an untrustworthy individual that seems to be asking for more than they need and has failed the basic checks to be granted access to that, even if they don't need that access, and they keep insisting on it. Now they're throwing a big huff and puff about it. That to me says, okay, well, even if it does get access, what can we do to make sure that we're still watching the watchers?
Yeah. Boy, this reminds me of one. Maybe all of you have experienced it as well in your careers. But who's trusting the monitors for monitoring people, right? Or the watchers, right? And I had a situation when one of my employees lied. Let's just call it out. He lied. We figured that out, and that just ruins it, man. Once that happens, the needle's broken, the damage is done, and I can't have that person
Mhm.
work in security. And it wasn't a big big lie in the grand scheme of things. It wasn't like they were trying to, steal from the company, whatever the company was that I was at. But once you break that trust and security as an employee, I can't work with
Yeah.
that person. So we terminated him.
Yeah, but like the polygraph thing, the reason I was framing those ignorant questions early on is you have one thing which is like, hey, someone took the last bagel. Was it you? No, hold on. Let's get the polygraph. And it's a lie thing. And then you got, are you a scoundrel? Right? And like I went through clearance and there was a whole lot of, I didn't have to do a polygraph, but I did TS and there was a whole lot of your foreign contacts, right?
Mm.
And the ultimate is like, are you on the take? Are you compromised? But there's a whole lot of like, do you regularly speak to someone overseas? And you're like, yeah, on LinkedIn, I got some friends in the UK and I talk to them regularly. And I got some coworkers that used to work in Singapore. And I don't want to iterate all that. I don't want to bring it all up. It's just going to be like, well, why did you bring that up? You're like, well, because you asked me that. Well, now, so you go a little bit quicker. And so there's a lot of opportunity.
Sunil's always traveling in different
countries. Oh yeah, I mean, if you have a polygraph, if you say, Sunil, tell me everybody you know outside the United States of America, and then you want to bang the gavel one day and be like, damn it, you didn't mention this so and so. Like, I mean, so of course he's going to be a bit nervous. If it's a general, like, not an up and down binary question, but more of a and is that what we're talking about here? This is more of a like, do you have foreign contacts? Do you regularly travel? Like, is it more of just like a character and nexus to other places, or is it more targeted towards saying, are you a spy?
Well, not that you can do your own easy research on what questions are asked. You're not supposed to if you go to a polygraph.
To prep, you mean?
Yes.
Is the first question, did you prep?
It's not one of the. It is a question, but it's not one of the formal questions. But yes,
interesting. Okay,
yes.
Okay.
And of course, the answer is yes. But most people want to say no, and you've already been caught in a lie, so to speak. So anyway, it is very much, are you a spy?
Wow.
That type of.
I've never taken a polygraph in my entire career and my life. And I imagine that if somebody would even just calling my name, what's my name? I swear I'd be starting to sweat. I would sweat bullets, right? I would fail. Let me just fail.
At the same time, it is, there's so many flaws with the whole system because you can fail for exactly that reason. People are just totally nervous about the whole situation. So, again, and that's why I would say, it's not, we can take the scenario and there's a lot of circumstantial aspects of it that make it odd to begin with. But people fail their polygraphs all the time for perfectly legitimate reasons. So, there's more to unpack. But as you look at the other aspects of the story, it's like there is some oddity in terms of why this person is a bit more insistent than normal.
Yeah.
So
back to Mario's point.
But it goes back, ultimately comes out to, again, we have a watcher. How do you ensure that we have proper governance even around the watchers themselves?
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway from this is more just about drama at CISA, and we'll keep our eye on this.
And I sweat bullets all the time.
Here's the thing that I think I'm most concerned about as well. Is it a surprise? Would we be shocked if some security organization ended up accidentally hiring an IT worker from North Korea?
No, I mean, given that the private sector has done it, I would assume. I wouldn't assume. I feel that public sector controls are a lot weaker. So the only thing protecting the U.S. government from hiring DPRK workers is that they don't pay as well as Silicon Valley.
Or the inefficiencies in the government, I think, make it harder.
I wasn't necessarily suggesting that the government would hire in North Korea. I wouldn't be surprised if they have. But I was just referring to just security teams within private sector. there's IT workers in general and developers in general, but there's if we ended up accidentally hiring an North Korean or Russian person for security, do we have a means? We're absolutely concerned about that, across the normal enterprise, but we should be especially concerned when it comes to the security functions. And that's kind of my point here. If we have something like that, how would we know? And in some respects, just having an offsite, just having an in-person sort of, there's value in having somebody in person again, right?
And for our listeners, when you listen to Sunil right now, I'm sure you're telling yourself, "Holy crap! I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue," because you're going to start paranoid as heck listening to this conversation.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be hard to, and I know it's the norm now, but to run a security team that's hired remote, to have a bunch of staff on there that are hired remote. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, at least having the first 80% be in person and to establish the amount of contact and productivity and output that you're going to get, so you have some control, some comparison for the remote. But if you just start remote and you don't even know what's normal or what good looks like, and you don't hear from people for hours on end, and that's now the new normal.
Let me bring it back to then the earlier part of the conversation and explain why I'm so interested in this. We talked about security folks using AI to do more security functions. The AI is a North Korean agent. Yeah. So how would you know?
Yeah.
And the exact same problem. We're going to have the exact same issue here where we don't. And if you don't, then you're going to have to put safeguards around that agent.
Well, I think it comes back to a theme that I keep coming back to, which is entities are bad not because of who they are, but because of what they do. And so, you know what? If it was a North Korean AI agent and all it does is pay the bills all day, then who cares? It's a problem when it goes looking for a lot more data than the job role would entail. And that's true of the good person who's in person and sitting right next to you too. They're great and fine, but the minute that they try to dump all of your sensitive records and exfiltrate them, they're bad because of what they did. So I think we have to get that right now, because to your point, you're going to have a much more dubious process of asserting provenance of a worker, whether it's an agentic worker or a human worker. It's going to be increasingly difficult to know where they really came from. So we just need to stop trusting people based on their handshake and trust them based on behavioral detections and patterns. All right. Last topic on here. This will be a fun one with this crowd. So someone who happens to work for a compliance tool vendor, so therefore a grain of salt here, said that details have emerged. Whenever things start with that's such a passive statement. Details have emerged regarding a widespread SOC 2 fraud scheme involving an automation platform, and we know a lot of those, and audit firms rubber stamping the reports out of it. There's no specifics, no compliance platform. I don't know. When I read this, I thought, and it goes on to just say that that the same template is being used repeatedly for all the different customers. That's called automation, right? Isn't that what all the automation platforms do? Is they ask for the same data, and when you don't have it, it generates it for you in the case of policies and all of that. And the tests that these things do, they just plug into your cloud environment.
Yeah.
Big firm has 25 cloud environments, so you pick the ones that pass SOC 2, right? And the auditors take it at face value. That's just the SOC 2 industry, right? That's not widespread fraud. It's not specific to a specific platform. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I was going to say, the headline could have been just as well said, details have emerged that SOC 2 is a fraud.
Dun, dun, dun.
Emerged AF. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Shocking.
Yeah, shocker. I think the more specifics of this was like, again, this is not a shocker to most of us here, but SOC 2 as sort of like a diploma mill where you just want this certification because people are asking for it. Now here you go. And there are ways to think about this in the sense of you ask someone who's helping you get through SOC 2 or an auditor. And if the question is, essentially, do you want to do this the easy way or the hard way, right? Do you really want a SOC 2 because you want to improve your security, or do you want a SOC 2 just because you want to just show a certificate? There are those who will just, there are many organizations that will just want the certificate, and many auditors and many organizations that will more than happily comply by giving you the equivalent of a diploma, diploma mill. But there are those who are really serious and say, no, if you just want it for, show's sake, then that's not us. Go find somebody else to do that. Those are typically the more reputable audit firms and such. But that's it. It's the whole thing. I think is a bit of a fraud anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a Boy Scout, guys. Right? I'm not this.
Yeah,
I'm not a Boy Scout. Okay, no, I'm not. But I'm going through this process right now myself, and then we're looking at these policy templates that are provided by honestly, when I was looking at these policies, I'm just shaving things away. I'm taking things out. We don't do that. We don't do this. We don't do that. And I'm trying to tell the auditors, look, I'm not doing that. You tell me I'm going to fail my SOC 2. I don't care. I just don't want to misrepresent. I don't want to get in front of Jerry and tell Jerry, oh yeah, I'm doing all. No, seriously. I mean,
I know exactly what you mean. And Mario, I know you. These are things that you probably aren't ashamed of not doing. You probably think they're kind of stupid. Otherwise, you would have done them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not keeping you up at night. The fact that you're not recertifying access to blah 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 every 5 minutes, like
physical
think, well, there's only 3 of us.
Bro,
so
I don't. What physical security? What are you talking about?
Is the fire extinguisher labeled? You're like,
that's right.
And I bet the auditors are looking at you like you're crazy. Like, dude, just click OK. Just ignore it.
But Sunil, to your, I mean, I wish if man, maybe I think too much of our profession, but I think a lot of us are trying to do the right thing and not misrepresent.
Well, look, I'll split the difference, though. I'll say, so recasting what Sunil said, so if I get it wrong, it's mine and not his. Some people are doing a SOC 2 because they want to, tick the box, and some people are doing it because they want to be more secure. I will agree that some companies prioritize security, and others, the only reason that they bring up the term is because they need to pass TPRM and get a SOC 2. But for the companies that are serious about security, trying to do that through SOC 2 is ultra awkward. It's like wearing mittens to type. Framework-based programs, including SOC 2, ISO's even worse, to say, hey, we want to avoid a security incident. And then, therefore, let's open this framework up and get started is an awful path. Because, there's 500 steps in there, and there's about 10 steps to being secure. And maybe 6 of them are covered in the framework. 4 of them aren't even there. But more importantly, there's 400 and change that are just a distraction. And you don't have infinite resources. And most of the stuff in those frameworks is so ethereal that you're just writing documentation and filing it away. That's not going to keep the bad guys away, just creating shells full of stuff. So I always said, everybody says compliance is not security. I agree with that. But I'll add but compliance is easier when you're secure. So I'd rather get secure without any frameworks in mind at all and do things that are actually tactical and stop, actual TTPs, and then open the framework and start mapping your benevolent, noble processes over to them. And if there's a gap, hopefully it's because this is kind of a silly control and not, we're going to establish a control because we never thought of it until SOC 2 came along. That's just a bad pattern, I feel.
The frameworks are useful in the context of if you don't know what the scope of your opportunity space is. But I think to your point, if you start with a framework, then the opportunity space seems vast. You have 400 different things you got to do. You can't really prioritize what makes the most, moves the needle the most. I think the whole part of the goal behind the CIS controls way back in still around, is that they tiered it into, the critical
ones.
Well, they're all critical, but there are some that are more critical, sort of like Animal House or Animal Farm. We're all equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah.
And so the implementation group 1 controls are more important than implementation group 2 ones, and so on and so on. So I think I don't know how many people have really fully embraced CIS and all, but I think it was a noble attempt to try to say, look, there are 400 different controls you can look at. But to Jerry's point, do these first because they move the needle the most.
It's funny. I would have an argument early on with one of our GCs many years ago, and they kept insisting, we need to deploy NIST here. We need to have NIST control. I'm like, the CIS controls came out of NIST. They're NIST, man. What are you talking about?
Deploy NIST.
But no, they insisted on NIST.
Well, I just went to ChatGPT and I prompted. If anybody's not gone through SOC 2, this is let's just cut to the chase. My prompt was, give me a random SOC 2 control statement. Everyone should try that, right? And I ran it 3 times. I said, give me another. And it's things like the organization change management. The authorizes tests and documents changes to production systems prior to deployment. Is that making North Korea quake in its boots? Like, if you filed enough paperwork to say that the organization restricts logical access to systems based on job responsibilities, what does that mean? Like, you can comply with that and not comply with that with zero impact on whether or not someone can hack in and steal stuff. And auditors totally forget that that's where this started. We were trying to have people not hack in and steal stuff. And we get so wrapped around the axle on, well, what are the job responsibilities? Do you have a JD? You got 6 employees. Is it the priority? Should it be writing job descriptions and mapping whether or not those mean that you should have a login to Salesforce or not? Like, it's just a total vortex of time suck. So sorry. Yeah. Don't start with that if you want to be secure. Keep the bad guys out. Then go back to those control statements and you could probably map your noble processes into them. Or so I say. All right, guys. This has been fun. Looking forward to the next one already. Hopefully we'll get back on track and, no shortage of topics for us to discuss here. But thanks for getting together and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Good seeing you.
Yep.